I came back from my business trip earlier than expected. I didn't tell anyone I was returning. I thought it would be a wonderful surprise. My mind had been filled with images of the joyful reunion I'd have with my wife, Emily, the look of astonishment and happiness on her face, the warmth of our embrace. I'd even stopped at her favorite bakery to pick up some pastries she adored. Turning onto our quiet street, I immediately sensed something unusual. Cars lined both sides of the road, many I didn't recognize. My pulse quickened. As I approached our house, I saw balloons bobbing gently in the breeze, tied to the mailbox, with bright letters spelling out, "Congratulations." Confused, I parked a few houses down and walked toward our home, my curiosity now mixed with a growing sense of unease. The front door was open, and laughter floated from inside. Heart racing, I stepped onto the porch, pausing for a moment before entering. Inside, our living room was alive with familiar faces, friends, family, co-workers, all chatting excitedly. But what stopped me cold was Emily. She stood at the center of attention, radiant and glowing, her hands gently resting on her rounded belly. Pregnant. I felt my heart stop, then crash back into motion with painful force. The pastries slipped from my hand, hitting the floor unnoticed. Emily's eyes met mine, widening first in surprise, then filling with panic. The room fell silent, the joyful buzz extinguished in an instant. "Nathan," she whispered, her voice shaking as she stepped toward me, her arms outstretched. But I couldn't move, my limbs felt heavy, rooted to the spot. My brother, Alex, moved protectively closer to Emily, his hand lightly touching her shoulder. It was a subtle gesture, but it spoke volumes, more loudly than any words could have. "Nathan, let me explain," Alex began, his voice tight and careful. But I couldn't hear anything beyond the roaring in my ears. My eyes bounced between them, each look more painful than the last. "Explain?" I managed to croak out. "You want to explain why my wife is pregnant, and why you're standing there next to her as if you belong there?" The silence was deafening, broken only by Emily's quiet sobs. My mother stepped forward, reaching out, pleading. "Nathan, please, just listen." But there was nothing left to hear, nothing left to feel but betrayal burning through every fiber of my being. My unexpected arrival had unveiled a secret that changed everything. Without another word, I turned and walked out, stepping over the scattered pastries, away from the celebration I was never meant to witness. I stumbled away from the house, my mind spinning in a chaotic storm of emotions, hurt, anger, disbelief. The warm afternoon sun mocked my turmoil, birds chirping cheerfully as if nothing had changed. My legs carried me blindly down the street, past neighbors who stared curiously at my shaken appearance. Somewhere along the way, my phone buzzed insistently, vibrating with a series of calls and messages I couldn't bear to check. I eventually found myself at a nearby park, collapsing onto a bench beneath the comforting shade of an oak tree. Hands trembling, I buried my face in my palms, trying to grasp what had just unfolded. Emily and Alex. It was unthinkable. Growing up, Alex and I had been inseparable, best friends, confidants, brothers in every sense. And Emily, she was the love of my life. We had shared dreams, laughter, plans for the future. But now, all that lay shattered at my feet. Eventually, I lifted my head, my eyes blurred with tears. Across the park, a group of children played, their innocent laughter a stark contrast to the pain ripping through me. My phone vibrated again, relentless. Finally, I pulled it from my pocket, seeing Emily's name flashing on the screen. Taking a deep breath, I answered, "What could you possibly say, Emily?" Her voice was barely recognizable, filled with anguish. "Nathan, please come home. We need to talk about this. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean my wife pregnant by my brother complicated? How long, Emily?" She hesitated, her silence deafening. "Too long," she finally whispered. Pain exploded anew, sharper than ever. Why, Emily? Why him? Nathan, it wasn't meant to hurt you. But it did. My voice cracked, raw and broken. I trusted you. I trusted both of you. She was quiet for a long moment. Please, just come back. Let's sit down, talk it through. You deserve answers. Maybe I do, I said softly, standing up from the bench, feeling a surge of resolve amidst the heartbreak. But not right now. Not today. I ended the call, stuffing the phone back into my pocket. The weight of the truth pressed heavily on my chest, but underneath it stirred a faint glimmer of determination. Somehow, I would find a way forward. But first, I needed to walk away, to distance myself from the pain before I could even think about facing it again. Days passed in a haze. I checked into a hotel, a place where nobody knew my name or my story. My phone stayed silent. I had turned it off, unable to handle any more messages or missed calls from those who had betrayed me. The solitude was suffocating, yet comforting in its way. At least here, away from reminders of my shattered life, I could breathe. During those lonely hours, memories haunted me, Emily's laughter, our wedding day, lazy mornings spent dreaming together. And Alex, my closest confidant, who had now become a stranger. How had it come to this? One evening, after another day of aimless wandering, I decided to turn my phone back on. It vibrated immediately with notifications, a flood of missed calls and messages. But among the clutter, one caught my attention. It was from my father. "Son, when you're ready, I'm here." The simplicity of his message struck me deeply. Taking a shaky breath, I dialed his number. He picked up immediately, his voice gentle, cautious. "Nathan, how are you holding up?" "Not well," I admitted, the words heavy on my tongue. "Everything's broken, Dad." "I know," he replied, his voice steady, reassuring. "But not everything. You still have me, and we'll get through this together." His words opened a door I'd been too afraid to approach. How could they do this, Dad? How could Alex? My father sighed deeply, sadness evident even over the phone. "I wish I had an answer, Nathan. People make mistakes, terrible ones. But those mistakes don't define who you are or what you'll become." "I feel lost," I whispered, fighting tears. "Then come home," he urged gently. "Stay with me, at least for now. You don't have to face this alone." His offer felt like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to face the truth, not with anger or bitterness, but with the quiet strength that came from family, real family. "All right," I finally agreed, my voice steadier than before. "I'll come home." "Good," he said softly, relief clear in his voice. "You're not alone, Nathan. We'll get through this, one step at a time." For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. The path ahead would be difficult, but knowing I wasn't alone made all the difference. The next few weeks were filled with quiet reflection and gradual healing. My father and I spent hours talking, sometimes about mundane things, other times diving deeply into past memories and future hopes. Each conversation helped to rebuild a part of me that had been shattered. One afternoon, as we were sorting through some old photographs, the doorbell rang. My heart clenched with anxiety, fearing who it might be. When I opened the door, my mother stood on the porch, looking hesitant and vulnerable. "Nathan," she began, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" I glanced back at my father, who gave me a supportive nod. Taking a deep breath, I stepped outside onto the porch with her, leaving the door slightly ajar. "What is it, Mom?" I asked cautiously, my arms folded defensively. Her eyes filled with tears as she struggled to find the words. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, Nathan. So sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." I stared at her, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. You knew something, didn't you? She nodded slowly, shame evident on her face. I suspected. But I was scared of breaking your heart. Instead, I let you get hurt even more. And for that, I'll never forgive myself. A lump formed in my throat as I listened to her words. Her sincerity and pain were clear, and a part of me softened. Mom, I needed you to be honest, even if it hurt. I know, she whispered, wiping her tears away. Can you ever forgive me? I looked away, struggling internally. Forgiveness was hard, especially when wounds were still fresh. But as I glanced back at her, I saw genuine remorse, and it reminded me that forgiveness was also part of healing. I can't promise it will happen right away, I finally said softly. But I'm willing to try. She reached out, gently touching my arm. That's all I can ask for. Thank you. As she turned to leave, I felt another piece of the heavy burden inside me lift. Rebuilding trust and relationships would take time, but the journey had begun. And step by step, surrounded by support and understanding, I was beginning to find my way forward once again. In the weeks following my conversation with my mother, life slowly began to regain some sense of normalcy. I started to venture out more, reconnecting with old friends who offered their unwavering support. Each day felt a bit easier, a bit lighter, even if the pain never fully vanished. One bright Saturday morning, as I was walking in the park near my father's house, I spotted a familiar face sitting alone on a bench. It was Emily. My heart raced with a mixture of dread and curiosity, but something inside urged me forward. As I approached, she looked up, startled at first, then her expression softened. Nathan, she said quietly, uncertainty in her voice. I took a seat at a respectful distance, my heart pounding. Emily. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, both unsure of where to begin. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry, Nathan. For everything. I never meant to hurt you. I stared ahead, trying to keep my emotions in check. Why, Emily? What happened between you and Alex? She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. After you started traveling more for work, I felt lonely. Alex was always there, supportive and understanding. One thing led to another, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. The raw pain in her voice was genuine, and it tugged at something deep inside me. Do you love him? I asked, my voice betraying my fear of her answer. She shook her head slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. No, I never did. It was a mistake born out of loneliness and weakness. But now there's a baby, and I have to live with the consequences. A part of me wanted to reach out, comfort her, despite everything. But another part reminded me of the betrayal, the deep wounds she had inflicted. What do you want from me, Emily? She looked up, eyes filled with regret and hope. Forgiveness, if that's even possible. And maybe, someday, friendship. I sighed deeply, feeling the weight of her request. Forgiveness takes time, Emily. And friendship. I'm not sure yet. But I appreciate your honesty. She nodded, wiping away tears. Thank you for even considering it. As we parted ways, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The road ahead would be complicated, but the conversation had offered a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. One step at a time, I was slowly moving forward, guided by strength and resilience I discovered within myself.